What up, YouTube? In this video, I want to talk about passport bros. If you know what this is, it's basically men in the West who are believe that they can't really find a good woman, so they're going overseas to find someone better, like a more traditional woman, more feminine and such as that. And in this video, I want to talk about my thoughts on it, and like I feel like the upsides and the downsides of this idea of passport bros. And I can tell you that I've never lived overseas. However, I do have a lot of experience interacting with foreign women, because I used to actually teach English as a job to women in a hospitality program and other programs. So I met a lot of foreign women. I have traveled to a few countries such as Japan, Korea, Iceland, and I've met a lot of foreign women just out and about. And here's my honest thoughts on it. That, well, for one, I know that the women overseas will probably be more traditional than the ones here, because a lot of them are probably leaving their countries. A lot of the ones that don't want to be traditional are probably leaving their countries to come here, or they're just trying to fit in with the culture in the West, and then they become more liberal and whatever not. But just generally speaking, I believe that any country that is exposed to TikTok or Instagram is not really going to have the women, generally speaking, is not going to have the type of traditional woman that you're looking for. I believe that women in the East and these other foreign countries will be more feminine, but it's on the surface. So in their body language, in their tone, in their the way they walk, the way they kind of carry themselves is going to be more feminine on the surface. So they may talk in a more softer tone, their body language may be weaker, their physical strength might be weaker, they're going to maybe be thinner because they still have body standards that kind of are a little bit more traditional, such as having thinner women. And all of these ways, these women are going to be more feminine, such as maybe Ukraine or Korea or Japan. They're gonna appear more feminine, right? But I think there's a very big difference between a woman who appears very feminine and a woman who is actually traditional. These are two different things. Like, these women may have kind of the remnants, I guess, of femininity from past generations that is still in their culture, but it doesn't mean that these women are like actually want to be there. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually marriage oriented. A lot of them are still very career oriented. There's drinking, maybe going to clubs, or they don't necessarily have a large respect for masculinity, or actually want to be led by a man, or maybe they do, but they're still going to be slightly more cause chaos and problems because they're not necessarily traditional women. Like, they're not looking to be they're not necessarily living their life by principles, such as actually having internal rules. And you can know this because you meet these women and they're still very social media oriented, still trying to run their follower count to the moon, still posting sexy pics, things like that. So yeah, like I'm saying, they may appear more feminine, okay, but that's an appearance, right? I know because I saw lots of these, students who I used to teach dating each other, especially Japanese students that I taught. It was a lot of Japanese students, and they're not any better than other women. Like, I can guarantee you that. I mean, I don't want to say I can guarantee you, but you hear things that them causing problems and other things, and with the men too, the men are not necessarily more traditional, but like I'm saying, they're more feminine on the surface. So if you can find an individual within that society that is more traditional, is a sweet woman who has strong morals, then you get the best of both worlds. A woman that's very feminine on the surface and very traditional, more traditional at heart. So if you live in countries like the US or Canada or whatever, that's can be the downside, because if you find a woman that's very traditional, she's still not likely not going to be as feminine as the women from the East, and that's the downside, you know. So that's why I think it is in a sense good to find a foreign woman, because they will be feminine on the surface, such as in tone, body language, the way they dress. You know, they actually understand the assignment, I guess, in the sense of being thin. They know that that's what men want. A lot of American women are not willing to admit it. You know, maybe even in Canada or whatever else in the West, they're not willing to admit that men want a thin woman or that whatever. But women from the East, like, you know, Korea, Japan, China, like all these, Russia, all these other countries, they at least kind of know the assignment. They know that a man wants more of a feminine woman. But like I'm saying, you know, any country that's exposed to Instagram or TikTok, they're watching all the same reels and videos and stuff that we are in the West, so they might be corrupted as well. There is another way of looking at it though that is really good. So some of these countries that do have, you know, that do have a history of Christian culture, at least you can go to little areas in those countries, such as church. You know, you can go to church, and that's where you can find a more concentration of actual more traditional women. So if that case, if that country has a history of being Christian, or they even have Christian people in general or something like that, then you're gonna really give yourself a chance there, hopefully. You know, if there's other countries that are like Muslim, like Central Asia or whatever, they're gonna have really feminine traditional women too. But if you're not Muslim, I mean, you're kind of out of luck. And for me, I try to be more Christian, so I ain't gonna convert to Muslim or Islam. But in that case, yeah, if the country does have some Christian people, then you can definitely find a woman with good morals if you at least go searching in the church. There's other issues though with, you know, going overseas. For one, if you don't know the language, are you really going to be able to talk to women? Are her parents really going to respect you? Are you planning on living there forever? Because if not, you're going to have to take her back to your country. You're going to have to take her back here, and that can cause a bunch of problems, because if she suddenly wants to go home one day, then she's just going to divorce you. You know, and a lot of countries are not easy. There's a lot of rumors, like people will say certain things like, oh, Japanese girls like white guys, blah blah blah, Asian girls like white guys. Yeah, those are Asian American girls, you know, or Asian Canadian or whatever. But if you actually know, you know, Asian women from Asia, they're not like all about white guys. Or even if they are attracted to them, they're gonna be a bit afraid. It's hard. Their culture has hit centuries of just marrying within their own race, and their parents are even more traditional, see that in an even more traditional way than them. So do not think that if you can go to like East Asia, that you will have an easy time. You know, I don't know, maybe you have another easier time in other areas. I don't know about Thailand or Philippines, or something like that, or South America. I don't know, you might have an easier time there, but my guess is that, you know, even their parents probably want them to marry within their own race, usually. And if you don't know the culture, you're going to be making cultural mistakes too. And I believe that some of it is that, mistakes in your country with women are probably often the same social mistakes that you can make in other countries. So you need to work on yourself in your own country first. And the other thing that I think is a myth is that you're not necessarily going to be seen as better just because you're from the West. You're not going to be seen as some financial hero because of your money's worth more than theirs, and you make a lot more money than them. I think a lot of people are actually, even from poor countries, are actually happy to be where they are. Like, even a lot of Mexicans, who live in a poor area, like, I've heard, even them, they are often happy, and they don't care to come to the U.S. or whatever other Western country. But yeah, if you are planning on going to other countries, I suggest get a cultural book, a book on their culture. I read a whole book on Korean culture before I went to Korea, and I do study some Japanese. So when I go there, I've been there twice. I can speak okay, or like a little bit. But yeah, that's my overall thought. If that's your type of woman, you want a woman that's more feminine on the surface, and then with the hoped, for opportunity to find a woman that's actually traditional, then I think you should do it. But don't lose yourself too. If you don't have a job over there, then like, what are you really gonna do? You need to do something of purpose, and you can find foreign women within your country. Probably you just move to a more diverse area if you don't have as much diversity. Yeah. Yeah, or just go to a church in general if you want a more traditional woman. And maybe you don't have to do the overseas thing. Or maybe it is the case that you're looking for such a traditional woman that it's actually unrealistic. And to some extent, we all need to understand that the world has moved on from like a woman that just stays at home and cooks all day or something like that. Like, and in some ways, for better or for worse, it's a good thing, I mean, it's kind of interesting to have a woman work also, and then you get to ask her about their day, I guess, and what they did at work. But mostly, I think us men are just looking for a woman that just wants to respect us, and that's the key. And I hope that we can all find that. And have a good night. Peace out.